From the 1970s up until this very moment, the Pinelands Creative Workshop and its founders knows of the power of sacrifice, moving from poverty to sustainability. In this special interview, we have a conversation with the CEO, Ms. Sophia Greaves Broom, about the contribution of Pinelands to Barbados' intangible cultural heritage. This is One on One. I'm Mishron Robinson. Welcome to the set of this one-on-one. Today we're having a conversation with the CEO of Pinelands Creative Workshop, Ms. Sophia Greaves Broom. Sophia, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're most welcome. As of 2028, you're the CEO of the Pinelands Creative Workshop and you'll be turning 50. That's a big achievement.
Yes.
For this year, 2026, Barbados heads towards its 60th anniversary as an independent nation. For you, having the helm of Pinelands Creative Workshop, how would you say Pinelands has contributed to the orange economy and cultural sector of Barbados over the last couple of years?
Well, that's a wonderful question. For going into 48 years as an organization that started is rooted in culture and have used it for the transformation of a community, that stabilization. Our part in the development as this country was part and parcel of this country's direction in terms of that stability, that economic viability. And Pinelands have provided that to its community and to its people. So going into or having that parallel existence in terms of us turning 50 and government moving into 60 is a good milestone for us and for our country. But the value of Pinelands is critical in terms of people development and cultural retention, in terms of organizational stability, in terms of community models that was birthed from Pinelands that can be now translated to other communities. And we have done that, not only in Barbados, where we would have translated our model to allow for further stabilization of Haynesville, but we have also used it in the region in terms of St. Lucia and St. Vincent as a means of providing an alternative or reactivation for underserved communities in those countries. So the organization, even moving into 50, continues to serve as a model, continue to serve as an example to other communities in terms of how it can build itself out, in terms of how you can address that independence and that level of sustainability beyond funding sources. So there's a lot of examples in terms of the value of the organization as a model and as an approach that can be translated to other communities, to other organizations in terms of their further build out.
Pinelands has played a pivotal role in transforming communities. You've mentioned Haynesville, also the Pinelands community, and helping stir youth away from a life of crime, from a life of violence. For you, even as CEO, seeing the development and redevelopment of Pinelands, why does this continue to be so important?
It is the foundation of the organization. It is that particular element that is the starting point. Remembering that when we are thinking in the early stages of Pinelands, where it was because of a disaster that pulled this community together, and where we had persons not comfortable because there was no social element, Pinelands was able to identify that social element. They would have been culture, they used sports, and to allow for that early building of cohesion among the people that were totally unfamiliar with each other. So that's how Pinelands evolved. And we find that with all communities where they come together, they have to evolve, they have to learn how to gel. But you have to find ways to allow for that, whether it's culture. Pine might have used culture and sports. Another community might use something like weaving or graphic arts or technology. So the entry point is not necessarily have to be culture, but it could be something. But for Pinelands, that is the tool we have used. And we have seen that it has allowed for that grounding of young people, understanding their identity through the learning of culture. They have allowed for meaning making and sense of efficacy. They have built capacity and built character. So we have seen, even for ourselves coming through as a management of Pinelands, we did not start as CEOs. I did not start at this position, I would have started, as you might know, as a dancer. I came through the program because I'm advertising about a dance program. But when you got there, it was not a dance program. It was about development of the individuals. But dance was the conduit by which we enter. It was a gateway. Even for our financial officer, she dances, she teaches, but she is a person with a financial background. So although we would have come through different channels, we'd have seen people develop into their full capacity with mine being project management, whole thing of business psychology. My financial officer has her own role and her titles, and we have invested in that in terms of making sure that the organization moved with the times in terms of retooling our people with skills and knowledge that allow us to be a future fit and not just remain in one position as an organization that started with culture.
Sophia, so you mentioned starting out as a dancer. Being a dancer, you would have been close to the elements of rhythm, teamwork, and cultural awareness. How would you say being a part of Pinelands and working as a dancer helped to prepare you to rising to the very top of the organization now as CEO?
Well, it helped in terms of building that camaraderie and also understanding the history, the philosophy of the organization. It facilitated that so that as I move into the various roles I would have taken up over the years, I took that with me. That knowledge kept me grounded in terms of what the organization needed, looked like, what it needed to look like in the future, and therefore now plan for the next future, which might be me or somebody else. But at least that early understanding, which we would have been translated through Rodney Grant in all of our sessions, because one of the things he did a lot is had conversations about the history and where it came from and how it birthed and where he wanted to see it go. He translated the direction.
Yes.
And we use that in terms of our design of our projects, in terms of design of our program, in terms of our response, in terms of building the community. So that early grounding allowed for us to see what we basically were or had to carry forward with him or without him. So our early leadership was critical in that education, in that building that connection, that psychological contract with the organization, and that is critical. So it allowed us also then to pivot into other areas. So as you know, the organization started with culture, but every decade you will find the organization evolve as it looked at itself and looked at its community and looked at its environment. It was able to truly say, look, let's add an economic base. Let's add a development base because these are the things that we need to pay attention to retain a level of relevance. And, so too that we also look at the whole thing of remaining viable in terms of our economics and not creating a level of dependency. So if we look at our country moving to 60, it's about independence.
Yes.
It's about that freedom, whether it's financial, social, environmental freedom, and that level of security for yourself, whether it's a personal security or organizational security. So that is somebody thinking that we were fed. The diet that we were provided from Rodney and at that time Derek Murray was basically understanding where they wanted to take the organization, what it came from. And that gave us passion. So whether I was dancing or whether I was in the office as a project person or the executive secretary to Mr. Grant, we were there because we went through a period where there was no salaries. So it was not because we had nothing to do or we weren't intelligent men and women.
Right.
But we saw the purpose in what we were doing, and that still remains the same today.
But how do you maintain that grassroots feel while moving towards internationalism, while moving towards regionalism? How do you maintain the core of what Pinelands is since its inception in the late 1970s?
Well, the implant, that psychological contract and that understanding the purpose behind the organization from very early, because I came into Pinelands at 21, basically allowed us really to understand why we were doing something. And to carry us forward, we knew as an organization very early, you cannot silo yourself or you cannot be afraid of adjusting your mission, and you cannot afraid of adapting your organization if you plan to have it exist beyond your first few years. Or if you're just going to be activity based or people oriented or just that personal agenda, that is when you're going to fall short. I think what we understood very early is the dynamics of the organization and the direction we wanted to take it, and we worked in terms of making that happen. We could go into all kind of basic change management theories about it, whether it's theory X and whether we are talking about, freezing and Lewin's theory. But the organization did that naturally. I was not afraid of investments. It was not risk averse. It was more risk tolerant. It was more committed to people development, whether it's through their education, whether it is facilitating their social needs and their family needs. So the organization invested in you, so you invested in it. So that's why we were able to continue to move forward. As I said, in the early days, there weren't salaries. There was just that passion, and we all stayed the course because we understand where it could have gone. And you have to buy into your vision. You have to buy into your goals. You have to buy into your philosophy if you plan to take an organization. And Pinelands is an institution. It is not just coming and doing a little dance class and we go home. It is translating our history. It's about developing capacity of people. It's about getting into business. And a lot of organizations are afraid of thinking about business or looking at the management practices that like any other company will look at.
Yeah.
We have not been afraid to do that and continue to be very introspective and not afraid to change, not afraid to say, look, this ain't working. This program ain't working. Let's scrap this or let's change this. And as you will see, our titles have moved away from the traditional format. We have to take a more of the more larger business titles, CEO, executive financial officer, those kind of things. So people are clear what their roles are.
Yeah.
So and because some people, and this is something we would have been taught very early, we understood it when we analyzed it. A lot of people have president and vice president, but still aren't sure what their job is.
Or what the vision for them is in those roles. Right.
So there's nothing to hold them. They have nothing to hold on to direct and steer them. So we would have put that aside years ago, even this thing about election and so on. We took a selective process a long time ago because you never had the best person at the helm to do the job. So there's a lot of things that we would have done to really cement the organization as one of those things that we can analyze all the elements to define a true social development model or socioeconomic model for any NGO. So that is our direction too as well, to use our model to educate others. This is how you can use it. So hopefully UE and their departments can see that as part of their agenda and something that we can research out in terms of a successful NGO in the region. And not only thinking about it from a Barbadian context, but seeing it as a model that could really allow for other NGOs. It's an area to be studied, other NGOs, other academics to understand how it works.
And how do you feel about that process now in terms of accessing grant funding, the variants of model that you're now using to go forward as you chart a course as an NGO, for example?
Well, the organization has never been risk averse. The organization have always had an eye on being economically stable, because our early leadership was clear. The organization is 95% female. Women are the heads of their households. Women are the ones who have the heavier responsibility. And we wanted to make sure that people were able to pay their bills. Because if we are an organization thinking about development in its purest sense, and we are looking at having voices and conversations like poverty and culture and youth, we got to be real in terms of what we do too as well. We can't be hypocritical in terms of how we construct the organization.
The mandate,
So critical to our existence was to make sure that our women, our membership
are
empowered. Correct. And there, that is where we took. Pinelands have had bakeries, driving schools, cooking programs, and all kind of different things to continue to feed that revenue through social enterprises approach. Have continued to use that social enterprise method to really sustain the organization, even when social enterprise was not the conversation of the day.
Yeah.
But we would have been doing that for a number of years, even translating the use of dance. We have the charitable as well as the commercial performance side of things. We're again cultural enterprise. So we would have always been searching and looking inwardly as well as outwardly in terms of ways that we can really address that. But the reality of it is, and when we look at what we had in front of us in terms of our membership, we had 95% women. And we knew we had to respond to that. And we knew that if those women had families, so we also need to respond to the social needs in terms of making sure the children go to school, the light remains on, they had their school needs, to make sure our membership were satisfied. And that is still part and parcel of the organization today.
Do you think there's a need for balance in terms of the gender gap there, with 95% women interested in the future of Pinelands or involved within Pinelands? And are there any concerns about the gender gap?
No, I'm not concerned. We have always remained a very inclusive organization. What we offer is both for male and female. The men basically have always empowered us as the women. I'd be an example.
Yes.
So I can't see that there's any disadvantage in terms of having male leadership. I never saw our men as one that it was their way or no other way.
Yes.
They always drew on the contributions of all the women. So basically, they were empowering the women throughout the years I know
Yes.
of being there, to really be involved, to really push and take the lead. Rodney will always say he's not raising kittens. He's raising lions, so he pushed our women to speak and have a voice and have that presence that we command, not only respect, but people understanding that when we come, that we can articulate ourselves, we can deliver, you can depend on the organization. Whoever you see come before you, that you can be sure that whatever you ask them for, whether it's a cultural project, whether it's a development project, it can work. And even that translate over to our funders who now have that confidence in the organization, because how we were raised, what our debt was from Rodney's end. So we were allowed to give that. We had that kind of flexibility. We had that kind of independence was bestowed on us by our early male leadership.
Sophia, and while this is an important point, I think this would be a perfect pivot for us to begin the next segment talking about the importance of being apolitical, the need for keeping that grassroots feel and moving towards internationalism as well, but also how you've remained apolitical over the years, not having political associations, that flexi-polarity politically, as you might call it. We're going to pause for a short commercial break, but we'll be right back with more one-on-one with CEO of the Pinelands Creative Workshop, Ms. Sophia Greaves. Feel free to stay with us.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Danielle Reed-Mulilo and I'm a general physician. Today we're going to have a casual talk about chlamydia and gonorrhea. Chlamydia and gonorrhea are both curable STDs and are spread by oral, vaginal, and anal sex. Both can cause discharges from infected orifices or no symptoms at all. Discharges can be yellow, green, or bloody. Both are easily treated with antibiotics by your doctor. If left untreated, they can cause infertility, so use protection and get tested today.
Hi, I am Corey Springer. I am the founder and chairman of the board of directors of the HURT Initiative, Barbados Registered Charity 1419. We were established in February of 2019, but we started operations 6 years prior, and our mission statement is to reach underprivileged families, bridging the gap between those who have not, especially at times of year when we as a community tend not to think about people who do not have. We like to emphasize healthy groceries. So one thing we do is provide 1 to 2 weeks of healthy groceries to impoverished families. If you're looking for us, you can find us on social media, IG in particular, at Help Us Reach Them. Bless.
Welcome back to the set of this one-on-one. We're having a conversation with the CEO of the Pinelands Creative Workshop, Miss Sophia Greaves. Sophia, we promised our viewers to touch on that whole topic of being apolitical. We've had the swearing-in of a number of government ministers earlier this week, but you're saying that where the Pinelands Creative Workshop is concerned, it's important to remain neutral, to
Yes.
remain apolitical. How are you able to remain neutral and still have the buy-in by, varying forms of government and administrations?
Well, let me first congratulate all those ministers who just got their appointments. Congratulations to all of them. I think we look forward to a very productive move as we get ready for into 60. For Pinelands, going into 48 years, our organization has always been a friend to all. We have remained neutral in terms of the delivery of our work. It's always been a plus for our organization, and that's something that we would not change because there's always something in the development process that aligns with our work, and it's important to put the work and the needs of the organization and the community first, as opposed to have any political alignment. So again, we are open. In terms of where our direction go, whether it's technology, whether it's youth, whether it's sports, whether it is, our development in terms of education. So we are on board with that, and we will work with all present ministers and many to come, and 'cause that is one of the key philosophies about the organization, the underpinning philosophy of the organization, that we are very neutral, but we are also very tied to our development approach and seeing and navigating the environment in which we are in and working closely with those ministers and their various departments in terms of fulfilling the needs that supports our members or community or the people who come to us, because our community is not only in St. Michael. We have people from all over Barbados who come to us for literacy programs and different development initiatives. So it will be advantageous to have a good working relationship. This is like corporate Barbados. You maintain a good working relationship with all your staff to get the best and most productive output, and that's where we stand.
In terms of sustainability, considering all you've mentioned in being apolitical, you've mentioned the importance of diversifying your income streams, your revenue streams away from government interests, but also the development of businesses within Pinelands to support those within your envelope.
Yeah, it is important because if we're looking at the current environment and we're seeing a lot of foreign policy shifts, we just had political change, and other countries have had political changes. You really need to start recognizing that the flow of support from various agencies, whether they too much change the thematic focus, you need to find something that allows you to have that level of control, that level of freedom to continue your particular mission. And therefore, NGOs or anybody need to be able to recognize how things are going, and therefore try to pivot, try to adjust, try to adapt, try to translate your organization into one that remains in alignment or remains in tune with the current dance. We're talking about a cultural organization, so you got to be able to dance. You can't keep the same rhythm for the entire.
Yeah,
all right, got highs and lows, and any
Right.
performances or not, you'll be bored.
Cadences.
But the reality is we have to be flexible. And part of it is looking at social enterprise, looking at investments, looking at having organizational mergers, or even looking at building consortiums, looking at having cooperatives. There are many things that we have not yet touched because we sometimes silo ourselves, or we sometimes partition ourselves from the things just because we feel our NGO should just be giving. But it's not necessarily so. We can do both. Investment in business can allow you to do more social good. It has allowed us to use our bicycle project to support our cultural development activities, to provide educational activities. I mean, in 1 year, if I reflect on my last report, nearly 300 children in 2019 had the opportunity to have free after-school lessons. And this is through us having the social enterprise stream parallel to the donor support stream.
You
So
said how many children?
249 when I look at my last M&E report. And again, that did not rest only with where we are located or immediate environs. It looked at people came from all over the country because there was a need. Even now, in this present, looking at one class that we are having in terms of looking at the issue of literacy, and I know that is something that's heavy on the minds of our country in terms of our Ministry of Education transformation, in terms of that literacy. We have a class that is bursting in terms of nearly 30 students of different abilities, and our classes are streamed according to their abilities and not according to age. So, and there are still more knocking on our door for other needs. And this is something that we have to be continue to be responsive. So where we reach out to our donor community is for organizations to have that evidence, to say to donors, this is what I'm doing, these are the numbers, this is the need. A lot of organizations don't have that evidence to be able to have that level of argument and that level of conversation. So the investment or the inclusion of those things, even in your budgeting, if you get donor funding or even through your social entrepreneurial activity, is to make sure you capture your stories, invest in doing that so that people can see you, that you're present in what is going on in your space. And it does not have to come from a space of being advised by any government. That's why we are neutral, but we can work with them because we recognize what the priorities are. And you have to be able to see what the national priorities are and see where your organization can contribute to that and align yourself to that, or you can do your own thing on the periphery and still be complementary. So there's a lot of strategies our sector has to look at in terms of their strengthening, in terms of investing in its people, investing in its, its audience, to make sure that there's a level of relevance, but they have to be an investment in your team to make sure you can carry it forward. They have to be of the same mindset, the same philosophy in order for it to move in one smooth direction.
And that's a critical point you mentioned, Sophia. You said investment in business helps you to do more social good, moving away from poverty to sustainability at a larger
Large
stage.
scale, yes.
What's your message to NGOs leaders who may be watching the program this evening, thinking that, they have this social good to do, but they don't understand business concepts or principles, but they have a lot of work to do, and they need to have that solid understanding of being risk averse, as you mentioned, investing in other business enterprises to funnel what you're doing as well. Critical.
I think they need to just be bold, just deconstruct your organization, pull it apart critically, and be honest with yourself. What you have, it might not be for everybody. Let me say that first of all. But there's some key questions. Do you have the assets for it? Do you have the human resource? Do you have the buy-in of your team? What do you have? You have to do that critical analysis. You have to do that assessment of your organization. It's not something you just pick up and do and say, oh my God, we said Pinelands did it and we didn't get it done. It takes time because we at 48 years.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of trial and error. You have to find that thing that fits you. So it comes from really analyzing and truly be honest about what you have in front of you. You might have a person that is just good at teaching a sport on a Saturday morning, but not might be able to translate that into something more. So you have to really be honest with what you have. You have to be selective in the business that you take on and understand what is required for that business to truly work. Because it's not like just saying, as I said, it's not a random crazy thing. It is a well thought through process. It takes time. It takes tolerance. It takes continue to inform your people and make sure they understand so that they stay with you and stay with it and help you to build it out. So I think for any NGO, I would say you got to be got in your mind that you want to be independent. You want to be sustainable. You want to pay your people. You just don't want them to come and make a little volunteer contribution because at the end of the day, Light and Power does not say you're a volunteer and therefore there's no bills. That bill
Right.
come every month at
Yeah.
a certain time
Yeah.
based on your cycle. And you have to pay or not it goes off. So you have to know that these people have these things, they have children. So if that is your prime goal to make sure you can facilitate the needs of these people that have decided to stay with you, it has to be that thing that drives you. So it is not a random thing, but it's a necessary thing. And it has to be planned and it has to be led and it has to be done. Somebody's not going to come and give it to you. And you need to know what is around you so you can capitalize on resources, but you can only do that if you are in a state of readiness. And it allows you to have that level of future fitness. So there's a lot of work to be done in our sector in terms of growth, knowing what you have, knowing what you can capitalize on, what you can maximize on, and how to do it. Because again, too, they have to come to the table in terms of training and not oftentimes have a conversation about what happened 10 years ago and they did that. You got to think forward about what you want for the organization and listen. Take critical information, take critical guidance, and learn. It is a learning process in terms of moving your organization into an entrepreneurial state of mind. It is a mindset that has to be developed because moving from that social mindset to that growth mindset or entrepreneurial mindset takes time and it takes immersion and collaboration and learning from others so that you move forward in the right step. So it is a lot of work. I would not tell anybody that it is something you get up overnight and do it unless you win the lottery. But it takes time. But you win in the end in terms of having that independence in terms of your resources and what you could do with it. So like for us, our resources for our bicycle project goes into the operational expenses, social development, cultural development. So it is broken out. Everybody needs that level of independence. So that's my word to other NGOs. It needs to be worked on. We need to do it. The environment is changing. And if we want to remain relevant, we have to do that and see yourself as a partner to government to be able to implement activities that is something that they don't want to take up. But you can only get to that level when you have the competencies that are required to do that kind of effective delivery. Because the sector is also known as not being reliable, able to deliver. You have to have that track record, and that's one of the things Pinelands has. You have to have the track record that you can deliver at a national level, at a community level, and in a way that allows government to have that confidence in your organization.
And competence helps in building that confidence as well. The more confident you are, the more competent you become,
Yeah.
the more confident you are in your skills and your ability to deliver, as you mentioned, at a national level also.
Yes.
Over the last 4 decades, you've had a number of programs in place where Pinelands Creative Workshop is concerned, including the bicycle project that you just mentioned. What are some of those other revenue generating projects that you're proud to name this evening?
Well, I want to start first with our cultural component because that is the backbone, the foundation of Pinelands, where we would have moved from just the performances to build the community in that early era to using it as a means of sustainability. So that is part of cultural enterprise. We would have gone into housing projects. So we were into construction. So we're very proud of that. We're building 40 homes of highest quality. So to see an organization now going to construction, from culture to construction, it's a significant achievement for the organization. So again, we were never risk averse. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of when we had a bakery here in Wildy as well. That went very well again, but that was in our early stages of really lifting up heavy business investments. And then we had the personal care products. We had so bringing these containers of personal care products and business and stuff like that. But I must say, over time, our business ability has strengthened with new systems and approaches. Our early days, we were probably, testing the waters and everything did not work 100%, but it prepared us for the now. We even had a car hire business at one point in time in the very early stages. So the organization continued to play with a lot of work. And I think we were able to capture this in a book created with the support of the Caribbean Policy Development Caribbean Policy Development Center and USAID would have documented our social enterprise journey. So there is that level of documentation, and for us too, we would have used it in terms of having this as an accessible tool to wider Barbados and the region and the world. Worked with the University of the West Indies Open Campus in terms of developing a course, a recognized course, Social Enterprise for Caribbean Transformation. And that is a course offered, through the UW Open Campus. So our experiences in business, we were able to pull that into documents, into the opportunity to build a course based on what is needed to be very social entrepreneurial as NGO. And this is not only from a cultural sector. The course done by the Open Campus allows for persons of any sector to understand whether you are in a sector, say agriculture, you can use that social entrepreneurial side. How can the agricultural can tie with environment in terms of how can you make that entrepreneurial while at the same time you're attending to some kind of environmental good or other social good in terms of even the nutritional policy. How can you produce goods that have with no chemicals in a more natural form that allows for greater nutritional value. So we have provided that kind of development process throughout the years, and even down to our education, in MVQ and dance, theater, directing. So the organization continues to use its experiences, its model, and its knowledge to be able to share with others. So that's the way we can do it.
Sophia, the lifeblood of Pinelands Creative Workshop, in considering all the things that you just mentioned, would be the youth taking center stage, your dancers, your theater actresses and actors, and also those in other programs, the Bicycle Project and so forth. When we come back, it would be good to have a conversation on the future of Pinelands Creative Workshop, your vision for the next 48 years, considering that you're turning 48 this year, and also the youth that are the lifeblood of the organization.
Yes.
Stay with us as we continue one-on-one with the CEO of the Pinelands Creative Workshop, Ms. Sophia Greaves.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Danielle Reed Melillo and I'm a general physician. Today we're going to have a casual talk about syphilis. Syphilis is a curable infection spread by oral, vaginal, anal sex, and contact with infected lesions. Syphilis has 4 stages: primary, secondary, latent, and tertiary. The disease progresses to each stage until treated. The primary stage causes a painless chancre lesion. The secondary stage causes a generalized rash, which is non-itchy and mainly concentrated in the hands and the soles of the feet. The latent stage can last for years if left untreated, and the tertiary stage can cause dementia and other major organ damage. All damage caused is permanent, so use protection and get tested today.
Welcome back to the set of One-on-One. We're having a conversation still with the CEO of Pinelands Creative Workshop, Ms. Sophia Greaves. Sophia, we promised our viewers to touch on the youth of Pinelands being the lifeblood of the organization, but we want to pivot to your experience as a youth in Pinelands. What were those days like coming out to Pinelands Creative Workshop as a young 21-year-old at the time? Many moons ago, I don't want to age you, but
just a few moons.
A few moons ago.
Just a few.
But those early mornings with Rodney, those early mornings with the team, tell us about that. Catching the bus from Spikestown in St. Peter up to the Pine, the discipline that was instilled in you.
Yes, that was a huge sacrifice because, in those days, parents never saw culture and dance as a job. You're wasting your time, So to make that kind of firm determination, and a little bit of defiance with your family, was risk. It was a risk that I took.
That was worth it.
That was worth it. I must say that. Because I think part of the risk and wanting to get to work, and the Rodney and the guys sending transport down to Tweesa, Baxter's Road to pick you up, because the minibus would come through Baxter's Road, so we pick up from the corner of where Pizza Mad Dog is located. And then up to the Pine, and you're coming to work with vegetables and different things because you're cooking on the job, because, you're getting paid. So everybody bringing something out of the cupboard to make that was part of the culture of the organization, that early grounding and that feeling, that what grounded us. And the first thing you would have to experience when you come in on morning, Rodney in his office, and when you think you're going to be starting work with his head banded up and everything, and he's in there talking away, it is really, he is sharing the philosophy and the vision that he had for the organization, and understanding the history, and sometimes we by neighbors' houses on the steps and getting breakfast, and the conversation is going on. So those early experiences, coming in through the avenue of dance, and then moving into the organization probably just 1 year after I would have joined the organization. It was a huge sacrifice, but it was a beneficial learning experience at the same time. The learning. And then, as I said, coming from St. Peter, this is foreign territory for me. And truly not even knowing sometimes, that was my first time you're really leaving the country and coming into town. So this is totally in my own ignorance. So I was, getting familiar with a whole new space and ending up staying. Because again, and as I said, a bit of defiance, because parents are saying, well, how are you going to feed your kid? You're going up to this place, there's no money, and coming home, the salary, Pampers got to get by, and I'm like confident that this thing going to happen. So, but I'm glad to say that despite that early, I think I would call it that early sacrifice, and that early commitment to the organization is what bring me in to where I'm at now. Because that same commitment is what drives me to take the organization forward. Because if we did not make that sacrifice, and you did not go through that, understand the value of what you were building, because it's about building something, I don't think I would have made it as a female leading an organization with such a reputation and such a responsibility in this current time, if I was not grounded like that. So that I must say, even for organizations, they must ground their people. So you have that level of commitment and determination and fight, because the environment constantly change. And you need to have that type of character of people around you. And I think Rodney provided that kind of foundation that have created the kind of team that we have now. And we are hoping to do the same in terms of rounding a new cohort of people, a new breed of people that would take the organization into another 50 or another 100 years, so that even beyond my existence, and probably my grandchildren will talk about it, that this is where it came from.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Rodney and the other founding fathers, if I may call them that, of the Pinelands Creative Workshop helped you to buy into this grand vision of the orange economy and the development of Barbados's orange economy, Pinelands playing a pivotal role in terms of the development of culture in Barbados. But how do you continue to sell this vision to other young people who will have other needs in this digital economy for you as CEO?
I think same way we have to be flexible, we have to be open to the needs of our current environment, whilst we keep an eye on that history and that philosophy. We have to keep an eye on it to make sure that we remain authentic in terms of who we are and what we would like the organization to look like. But we also can't be afraid to allow the organization to change again.
Yeah.
Because we have new things facing us, which is AI, and what else might be coming to us. But we got to be able to understand and govern those things. We have to be in control of them. I understand, that our new minds have different needs. And that is something that we are looking at as an organization. How can we be more inclusive in terms of what is in front of us and what comes next, without diluting or devaluing what the organization would have built, but allowing our young people to understanding that root that has been planted, understanding where it came from, so that in their planning and their own development strategies as they move the organization forward, that they have that in the front of mind, and keep that in the front of mind. So that's where we have to know and continue through our choreographers and through our stories, tell the history and document our story so that they can look and they can hear and they can engage with us and understanding this is where it come from, this is what it was about, this is what what they were fighting, this is what they were trying to achieve. Helping them understand that will allow us to understand where we go next. Our vision for the future is to really finally have that home, that facility, in terms of having a space where our music, or in terms of our dance or theater, can happen without interruption, where we can build out formal institutional programs and courses built that allow for our full expansion of our relationship with a lot of our international institutions, education institutions, so we can facilitate those things. And also, too, look at even different means of economic sustainability. And key to that, too, is writing our own chapters in history as it relates to what the Pinelands models looks like, documenting that for further study from an academic level and for further use across the world, because we have people who reach out to us in terms of universities about using our work and our material for their teaching. So that is key to where we are going. But our youth is going to help us define exactly or what else we need to add to that as we move forward. Maybe understanding AI better, maybe getting into more robotics, maybe the maybes are there. And this is where our young people will say to us, hey, let's try this. And we got to be open to that and help manage that process with them.
Will you continue to ground yourselves and chart a vision for the future? How important is the association with the reparatory justice movement, with the association of Black consciousness, is continually to Pinelands Creative Workshop in this new age, in this new era?
Well, it is important because you must remember, if we look at dance alone, it is a celebration of our bodies that sometimes was the women were most deprived and abused during that period of slavery, and to use dance as a form of expression and recovery in terms is a form of living reparations, where we are now looking at how those movements, what it means, and celebrating those movements. That is a part of living reparations that we need to start to address. Our minds have been positioned more so on the economic side of it, but I think we have to have that shift in terms of what the arts can do and its relationship to health and its relationship to other elements, because it ties into reparations. We were not able to dance, move, or play music as Black people.
Yeah.
There's things we were deprived of those things. So to recover it in a sense of freedom through Afro-Caribbean folk, and to preserve those art forms and understanding what those art forms meant in terms of social cohesion for enslaved persons. This is a part of our freedom. Similarly, we have a freedom to vote now. We should have our freedom in terms of our art forms, and our traditional art forms need to be secured and safeguarded, because we would have lost this along the way. We would have been subjected, even when we think about health, down to dietary remains.
Yes.
But because of how we worked, we were able to survive that. But in this present, the same diet is harmful to us. Our ancestors survived it, in terms of the dehydration and the work hours we go through that, and our bodies respond differently. But the arts allows us to give voice to that freedom. It gives the movement show our transition on the slave ship. It shows everything. It shows our color. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there should be some alienation to dance or culture in terms of reparations. It is critical and a critical part of what it is. In terms, as I said, activating that living reparation, that living. So we have work to do in that area. There need to be a space for it because we discuss the 10-point plans, and I sure health and this aspect refers to point 5 of that 10-point plan. But there are other things we need to do in a very practical way. Because even if we're talking about health and dance, there's something we could be doing in schools, and there's a
Yes.
relationship with NCDs
Yes.
in terms of the national policies.
Yeah.
So there's a relationship to everything, and that's how the organization have been able to think and open up its mind to. But we have to provide a space for it, and not it being something that is siloed to just a space because it's Afro-Caribbean dance and this whatever. We have to realize it has a particular value. And we as people of color and people in general have to be more appreciative of what it can do, whether it's through looking at it from a health perspective, whether we're looking at it from an arts perspective, whether we're looking at it from a repertory perspective. We need to realize that there is a significant value of culture. We know in other development countries, when we were recovering from COVID, a lot of countries gave attention to culture in terms of making people feel a sense of purpose because of the isolation. They used it, whether it's through online videos or through activities using culture. So it is important for building people and to building that community cohesion, to building that family cohesion and grounding people. It helps to ground people, and I think it can be even used in criminal justice in terms of grounding young people, in terms of understanding their value, the journey they took to get to being free, their journey that they took to being able to vote. It allows for that, identifying yourself so that you are not out there just running crazy and creating that level of discomfort in your society that we get in downgrade constantly because of fear, or because we're afraid to come outside and enjoy ourselves at an event because of that fear of the criminal activity. So culture. Now, we would have used that in the point in terms of navigating that level of inactivity and the possibility that it could lead to criminal activity as a preventative thing. So it is a transformational tool, and I think we have to be more cognizant of its value. I think we just see it as a thing, but we have to understand the social and the economic value that it could be, and the reparative value it has too as well.
On another note, how important is having a state-of-the-art center for the Pinelands Creative Workshop as they approach the 50th anniversary?
That is one of our biggest dreams. As I said, our portfolio or our curriculum is huge. It will not only be just about dance and theater. It's about having a space for our development activities, our music, and whatever else in terms of even the IT and other digital areas that we want to get into, graphic design. And because these things, the space allows now for employment. The space allows now for training and reskilling of people. So it will be an institute. It will be a space where our research element can be expanded, because a lot of our work is built on research. So it would be a usable space, a living space, because it allows for the expansion of the work that we are doing. But again, this calls for investment. It calls for having the right resources, and this is something we are hoping that we can get the necessary support, whether it's through donor sources, whether it's through the support of our government. We will be happy for that. We have earned it, I think, and I think that it would allow for it would be a safe space. It would be the breeding ground for talent. It would be the breeding ground for quality research. And I think that is something that we're missing, whether we're talking about ICH, whether we are talking about training and education and access to opportunities by all. It would be a good space for our satellite program in terms of institutions persons able to come to a space to gather their education that they might not have the entry requirements to get into formal institutions. So there's a lot of things circling that could be implanted in that space to allow for that broader development space for people, for the organization, and by extension, the country.
Sophia, we've come to the end of this one-on-one. I'm most certainly wishing you all the best in terms of your redevelopment of the space as you head into your 50th anniversary come 2028. But it was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. We've come to the end of this special one-on-one with the CEO of the Pinelands Creative Workshop, Miss Sophia Greaves Brome. On behalf of my producer, until next time.